What's going on, everybody? Brinks Entertainment here one more time, and today we are going to be learning about the differences between CDMA and GSM. This is Let's Get This Straight, and so without further ado, let's get on into it. Alright, this is going to be a fairly quick video. I'm going to make this as quick as possible. Today, like I said, if you've seen the thumbnail, if you've seen the title, today we're going to be talking about the differences between CDMA and GSM. So what is the difference? Well, there are a couple of differences, and I'm going to briefly go over them. For those of you who don't know, there is LTE, which basically is an abbreviation. What it stands for is long-term evolution. And basically whatever number it is, 3G LTE, 4G LTE, 5G LTE, the number basically stands for the generation of the technology. So right now we are in 4G LTE, so it's the fourth generation for long-term evolution. And I know that really doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's just what it stands for. There's different types of networks. So based on pretty much the 4G, the LTE is based on GSM and Edge and let's see, UMTS, HSPA network technologies, and it's pretty much for increasing capacity. I can't talk. Increasing capacity and speed using a different radio interface together with network improvements. So it's pretty much two basic technologies in mobile phones. CDMA and GSM represents a gap you can't cross. They're the reason you can't use many AT&T phones on Verizon networks and vice versa. But I'm basically going to explain to you what exactly all that means. Now, GSM basically stands for Global Mobile System, or standard, or global system for mobiles, or global standard for mobiles. That's basically what GSM stands for. CDMA is code division multiple access, and then you have WCDMA, which the W just stands for wideband. But pretty much CDMA and GSM are what we're going to be focusing on. The shorthand of it is that there are two major radio systems used in cell phones. Both acronyms tend to group together a bunch of technologies run by the same entities. Basically, I try to explain which technology is what and what the real differences are. Now, I am actually live in America, and I'm going to be explaining using American companies. For those of you overseas, I apologize if you're not really familiar with all of these companies, but the company doesn't matter, because we're talking about the technology, not the actual company. So in the United States here, Verizon, Sprint, and US Cellular use the CDMA network, and AT&T, T-Mobile use GSM. Now, I know Virgin Mobile is certain places overseas, if I'm not mistaken, in the I think it's the UK. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Virgin Mobile has like television net service. I don't know. I thought whatever. But yeah, here in America, Virgin Mobile, Boost Mobile. If you've seen some of the commercials, they both use Sprint's network, so that makes them a CDMA network. But most of the rest of the world uses GSM. Global spread of GSM came about in 1987 from Europe, and they mandated the technology by law. And what we call CDMA is owned by the chipmaker Qualcomm. CDMA is pretty much it's a different radio network, pretty much. So being at Qualcomm, it made it it was made less expensive for third parties to use GSM equipment. And there are different variants and options carriers can choose, like topping their technological ice cream, basically. But like I said, we're going to focus on US networks. So first I'm going to talk about CDMA. So there's 3G CDMA and there's 4G CDMA. Now there's a big difference in the two. As far as the radio network, not so much, but how they both operate and how they both utilize the signal for voice calls and data is going to be different. So for those of you who remember back in the day, the old iPhone 4S, or the iPhone 4, I should say, it was a 3G phone. It didn't have 4G capabilities because it didn't come out at that time. It did not have a SIM card on Verizon or Sprint, and the reason for that is because this it doesn't use SIM cards, so it was basically because everything was 3G wasn't mandated. It was the technology wasn't needed on a SIM card. It was basically a radio network they put in the phones. So the 3G CDMA network, also known as EVDO, or in other words, Evolution Data Optimized, generally can't make phone calls and transmit data at the same time. So back in the day, when you were on your Verizon 4S, iPhone 4S or iPhone 4, and you tried to make a phone call, you could not go on the internet at the same time because it was either or, because they shared the same network. And then once more, that's an available option now, is known as SVDO, for simultaneous voice and data optimization. But on the other hand, now you have 3G GSM networks that have similar simultaneous voice and data because it's a required part of their specification. So when you were on AT&T, you were able to go on the internet and talk on the phone at the same time. Now, 3G CDMA does not use SIM cards. But the 4G CDMA does use SIM cards. So Verizon phones and Sprint phones now, if you've ever opened up your phone and just kind of tinkered with it, if you had Sprint or Verizon, you notice that there are SIM cards in the phone. Now, the reason why there are SIM cards in the phone is because the SIM card houses the 4G LTE standard for data optimization. So the internet, in a nutshell, is on the SIM card, where the voice data comes from the radio network, which is the antenna on the phone. Why did so many US carriers go with CDMA? Basically, it's just timing. So when Verizon's predecessors and Sprint switched from analog to digital back in 95 or 96, around that time frame, CDMA was the newest technology out there. So it offered more capacity, better call quality, and more potential than GSM at that time. But as we all know now, GSM did catch back up. So by the time GSM caught up again, Verizon and Sprint, they were already set in their ways as far as built up on CDMA. So there really was no need to just kind of revamp their whole line to go back to GSM. Now, I'm going to briefly go over a little bit of the technology behind CDMA and GSM. So like I said, they're both multiple access technologies. They're ways for people to cram multiple phone calls or internet connections into one radio channel. Like I said, GSM came first. It's a time division system, so calls take turns. Your voice is transformed into digital data, which is given a channel and a time slot. So 3 calls on one channel look like basically, if I were to write it down, it would go 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. On the other hand, the receiver listens to only the assigned time slot and pieces that call back together. So the person that's receiving the call, whatever one, if he's 2, all he'll see is 2 2 2 2, because he's the one on that receiving end. And then the pulsing of the time division signal created by the notorious GSM buzz, a buzzing sound whenever you put the phone next to a speaker. A lot of times we remember this from back in the day when you had a Motorola Razr or a on AT&T, and you put it next to the speaker and it goes. I'm pretty sure you remember that. That's that buzz. So that's mostly gone now because 3G isn't a time division technology. So so that basically you really don't hear that anymore unless you have somebody that has a really old phone. CDMA required a bit more processing power, so it's a code division as opposed to a time division system. So every call's data is encoded with a unique key. Then the calls are transmitted at once. So if you have calls 1, 2, and 3 in the channel, the channel would just say 6 6 6 6 6 6 6 6 and so on. The receivers each have the unique key to divide the combined signal into its individual calls. So they'll receive it the same way. It's a bunch of extra stuff you probably don't really understand, but I'm not, I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but just getting down into the nitty gritty of it. Code division turned out to be more powerful and flexible technology. So 3G GSM is actually CDMA technology called WCDMA, which is wideband CDMA, like I said before, or UMTS. I'm pretty sure you've seen that on your phone also, which is Universal Mobile Telephone System. WCDMA requires wider channels than older CDMA systems, as the name implies. but it has more data capacity. So what we're talking about here is we're talking really about clarity in your voice call. Since its inception, GSM has evolved faster than CDMA. And as I mentioned above, WCDMA is considered the 3G version of GSM. And it's kind of weird, but you know that, whatever. But basically, where's everything going right now? The future of LTE, it will eventually close as everyone moves to 4G, which is where we're at now. But that doesn't mean everybody's phone will be compatible with LTE. Because there are going to be still phones floating around there that's not. But it's no problem, kind of like, it's like well, I guess I can't use it in references video games because they really don't make them backwards compatible anymore. But it's kind of like being backwards compatible. They'll just use the older technology because it's still floating around out there. But as phones, get older and stop working, people upgrade, and eventually will make everybody be on the Switch. And there's, but as far as everything is concerned, it's really just there is a difference. So which one is better per se, GSM or CDMA? Well, it all depends on where you live. Depends on what network gets a better signal. What if you're considering moving to